Ooh, 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 ooh. She farted. Excuse us.
Hi, my name is Aimee Curameng. I was born on February 28, 1985 in Manila, Philippines. My adoption story is pretty unique. I have two Filipino adoptive parents, both born and raised in Onisan, Quezon. My mom was in the Philippines for her niece's wedding and asked about adopting a baby. She met a nun who ran a convent for unwed mothers, and a month later, I was born. Here are some photos from when I met my parents for the very first time. It took about 8 months to process my paperwork before they could bring me back to the States. I was a very happy baby. We lived in Alhambra in California, and I was surrounded by lots of family. Like any big Filipino family, we didn't need the excuse of a birthday or holiday to get together to throw a party. This just happened to be my first birthday. I had a pretty average but pretty happy childhood. From a young age, my parents wouldn't say the word adopted, but instead they'd use words like, "you're special." If I asked where I came from, my mom would tell me that I didn't come from her tummy, I came from someone else's. I was even fortunate enough at the age of 3 to meet the nun who facilitated my adoption, Sister Celestine. Even at a young age, I was always interested in the arts. I loved playing dress-up, especially the 3 times I was a flower girl. When I was a kid, I loved my birthday. Loved.
Birthday to you! Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday, dear Aimee! Happy birthday to you! And
I really love to sing, especially Jem. I got to travel a lot at a young age. I visited family in Chicago, traveled to Vegas, and went to Orlando, Florida for the first time when I was 7, which was a big deal for a Disney fan like me. But it also wasn't easy. I was an only child and didn't have a lot of kids my age to play with, so oftentimes I'd be on my own. I always tell people that kids are way more intuitive than you think, and things started changing for me and my family around the time of this trip. One particular incident comes to mind when we were on the ferry to take us to the Magic Kingdom. My dad would be filming our vacation, and I'd get so stressed out because he'd often get separated from us. I had this deep fear of being separated from my family that I'd later attribute to abandonment issues stemming from my adoption. But at the time, I was a 7-year-old kid, afraid of being separated from her family. My mom kneeled down and had to tell me not to worry or stress out so much about my dad. He'd find his way back, and I should just enjoy myself. But I could still feel things changing, and I was proven right when we moved not too long after this trip. We relocated to Sacramento, California, about an hour plane ride from Los Angeles. My dad still lived in LA, but later he would move to Las Vegas to be closer to his elderly parents. My teenage years and my pre-teenage years were a little rough. My greatest fear, the separation of my family, had come true, and I didn't deal with it well. I've experienced suicidal ideation since the age of 10, been in and out of therapy, but always coped through temporary lapses of joy. For example, following my favorite band around, I was even on Access Hollywood once for them. I got to travel to London and even a return trip to the Philippines for my first time since having left there in 1985. So it wasn't all terrible. I graduated from high school in 2003 and started my first year of college at Marymount Palos Verdes. I discovered my love for theater at 19 after traveling on a school trip to New York City. After a few not-so-great years in college, I graduated with a degree in film studies at California State University, Sacramento in 2007. Almost immediately afterward, my mom and I moved back to Los Angeles, where I would get a job a few months after graduation, working as a transcriber for E! Entertainment Television. It was a pretty fun job for a 20-something like me. But not too long afterward, the company made some cuts and I was unemployed again. I used that unemployment time to spend some more time in the Philippines, almost 10 years after my last visit. I got to spend my 25th birthday there, visiting family, practicing my Tagalog, and I even reunited with the two women who helped with my adoption, my Tita Baby and Sister Celestine. Thankfully, I wasn't unemployed for too long and got rehired by E!, which became NBC Universal. I got to do some traveling with friends, and even spent some time doing photography for events around Los Angeles. I mentioned before that when I was a kid, I really loved my birthday. But as I've gotten older, birthdays are difficult to celebrate. I even spent my 30th birthday at Disney World for the first time since I was 7, and I couldn't escape or run away from that feeling. Birthdays remind me of what I'm missing instead of what I have, which is difficult for me because I feel a lot of gratitude in my life. But I still feel that deep sense of abandonment. I feel like something's missing that I'm not able to fill with trips, theater, the things that bring joy to my life. On my birthday, I think about my birth mother, the woman who gave me life. As a film studies major, I studied film. I studied other people's stories, and it's hard not to think about my own and the information I'm missing. Does she think about me on my birthday? Does my birth father know I exist? Does he think about me? Do they think about me the way I think about them? I don't know. And as I get older, I'm starting to feel that sense of urgency to know where I came from, and if it's even possible to get those answers now. I asked my mom to see my adoption paperwork when I was 9. Way too young to comprehend anything I saw, but old enough to know what adoption meant. I've never done an official birth search. The last time I went to the Philippines, we tried to find my information, but it didn't result in anything substantial. Would I like to meet my birth mother and her family? Absolutely. Realistically, I know it's her choice whether or not she wants to acknowledge me. I risk that feeling of rejection, and I tell myself I'm prepared for that. But I can remain hopeful. Hopeful that one day she'll be able to tell me her story, and I'd like to tell her that I'm there to listen. Despite everything I've been through, I remain optimistic for the future. Most of all, I want her to know that I'm okay. I want her to know that giving me up for adoption was a good choice. I live a very fortunate life. As I get older and speak to more adoptees and share my experience of adoption with other people, I realize I'm not alone. Many other people feel the way I do. It helps to feel I'm not alone. And I'm always learning and always changing and always growing in how I feel about being adopted, being an adoptee, and my experience will only continue to expand and change. As for me now, in present day, in the middle of the pandemic last year, me and my mom made a final move to Las Vegas. Hoping this one is permanent. I'm still getting to know my new city, and we're slowly starting to return to normal life. I now live in the same city as both of my parents for the first time since I was a 7-year-old. Life is just beginning again, and I can't wait to see what it brings.